I would like to call the defendant Sierra LaRose.
Okay, ma'am, if you'd raise your right hand, please. Do you swear from the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Okay. Sierra, do you believe you and the plaintiff co-parent well together?
I do not.
Okay. Do you believe you communicate well with each other regarding concerns for Isaac?
No.
Order in place was put in place on June 1st of 2021, correct?
Yes.
And that's a stipulated order, meaning that you and defendant reached an agreement that defendant would have 5 consecutive weeks in the summer.
Yeah, we reached
Correct.
this agreement during a settlement conference, so it did not go to trial, which is why
Okay.
some of those pieces of evidence pre-2021 were not submitted.
Okay. Do you know why you were meeting and what led to this stipulated order? Was it because of, was there a change of circumstances with living, I guess?
Yeah, Lonnie had moved to Hawaii and he filed a motion to change the parenting order so he could have consecutive time with Isaac there.
Okay. That was June 1st of 2021, and for the summer of 2021, did Isaac go to Hawaii and have 5 weeks of parenting time with Mr. Coleman?
He did.
Okay. Were you aware of what Isaac's living arrangement would be during those 5 weeks in Hawaii?
I was.
Okay. Did you have a physical address for where he would be for overnight parenting time?
Yes.
Okay. Did you ever see pictures showing where Isaac was living at that time?
I did, yes.
Okay. Can you describe to the court what the pictures showed?
The picture was of Isaac sitting in a chair and there was like a tarp overhead. It was not, there wasn't a lot shown in the picture as far as environment goes, but it looked like he was under a tarp.
Okay. You heard Mr. Coleman's testimony that they were in a 10-person tent in one big room. Did you know the other people they were sleeping with in that tent?
I don't believe, I didn't get the impression there were other people in the tent. I do know there are other people living on that farm and I don't know them.
Okay. Do you feel the communication was good between you and Isaac and the plaintiff during that 5-week period?
No, I do not.
Can you explain what you feel was not good?
Well, Mr. Coleman referred earlier to the Apple Watch that I sent with Isaac and him not letting Isaac use that and then telling me that he was going to destroy it. I asked him if he would instead mail it back and he did not. Then Isaac was able to call me on his phone, but it was erratic. I wasn't able to get a hold of Isaac when I needed to. Part of the benefit of having the Apple Watch is that I could see where he was, just for peace of mind of myself, or if something were to happen, which then I was not able to do. And towards the end of their trip, during the last 2 weeks, there were periods of time where it went, I don't recall the exact number of days, but certainly more than 3 days without Isaac being able to call me. Did
you reach out to Mr. Coleman at that time asking for Isaac to call you?
I did.
And what was Mr. Coleman's response?
I don't recall. We probably have the text messages, but I don't want to misquote.
Okay. I do have the text messages. It is actually a exhibit that Mr. Coleman attached to his pleadings. I see that on August 3rd, 2021, you ask, please have Isaac call me. And then Mr. Coleman responds with, Isaac wants to FaceTime with, maybe you can contact your lawyer to change the agreement so you can. Your response was, what? I'd be happy to FaceTime with him. I'd love that. Mr. Coleman's response, so you want to contact your lawyer to change the agreement? Because if I do, I am breaking the agreement that you forced me into mediation to agree to. Otherwise, I cannot. I told you and you still did it anyway. Co-parenting is working together. You refuse, so please contact your lawyer. Then he finishes with, Isaac really wants to see you. Your response was, if we both agree that it's fine for him to FaceTime me, then I think that's all that matters. It doesn't say anywhere in there that he can't. Don't make him suffer. And then Mr. Coleman's response was, as I recall, you also broke the restraining order you put against me. And you wrote, can I please talk with Isaac? And he said, if you change the order so Isaac can have a flip top phone that I pay for, then yes. I am not okay with watch phone. I am going to dispose of it.
Has this been admitted as an exhibit?
Correct. Yep. It's
No,
exhibit-
attached as a filing is not admitted in court.
Oh, I'm sorry. It was attached to a filing by Mr. Coleman. Does that,
Okay.
does that jog your memory, Miss LaRose?
Yes,
So, okay, Mr. Coleman was refusing to have you talk to him unless you met his conditions.
yes, he was withholding the communication as a manipulation tool.
Okay. How old were you when you moved to Hawaii?
I was 16.
Okay. You heard Mr. Coleman testify that you were living on the dirt. You didn't know how to bathe yourself. Is that true?
No, I was camping. I did have a place that I rented in town. It was $400 a month or work trade, and I would spend time between there and camping in the state park. And when I was camping in the state park, I was living very close to the dirt, but I did bathe myself and I did have basic hygiene and knew how to meet my own needs.
Okay. Were you alone at that time?
I was spending various times. I was with my family part of the time. I had a boyfriend previous to Mr. Coleman that I lived there with, between there and this other housing that we were renting out in town. And we worked various jobs, landscaping and mostly landscaping.
Let's move on to the summer parenting time of 2022. Did Mr. Coleman exercise his 5 weeks of parenting time with Isaac in the summer of 2022?
Yes,
And where did he exercise that parenting time?
in Alaska.
And you consented to that?
I did.
Okay. How did Isaac prepare for that trip to Alaska?
Well, his dad, Mr. Coleman, as he has said, sent him a lot of camping equipment. So we brought that with us. Prior to the trip, I read some survival books with him and we watched some survival shows and kind of got into living off the land kind of stuff. I packed him a first aid kit. I talked to him about what to do in some emergency situations. And Mr. Coleman had asked me to package a whole bunch of spices in small sealed bags for him so that they could have them on our trip, spices from my own cupboard, and I did that.
Okay. Did you take Isaac out and purchase things for the trip for him as well?
We did, yes. We took him shopping before we met up with Mr. Coleman at the Civic Center, purchased him a new pair of shoes, a hat, let's see, so a new water bottle, anything that I thought that he might need that he didn't have.
Okay. Do you remember that exchange with Mr. Coleman at the Civic Center in 2022?
I do.
Can you explain to the court what that looked like, how that transpired, what happened?
Yeah, as Mr. Coleman said, he was sitting at the picnic table near the playground when we walked up, and he had a 6-pack of beer on the table, which he was drinking one of, and 2 were gone. So I don't know if that was his first one, what happened to the other 2. He offered us one, we declined. I said that I was uncomfortable with him drinking while Isaac was in his care. because he has told me that he has a history of alcoholism, and I have personally seen that he is often not able to quit after one or two. And to that, he responded, I'm a better father when I've been drinking.
Okay. Were you concerned for Isaac for that 5 weeks in Alaska?
Definitely.
Okay. Mr. Coleman give you an itinerary for that 5-week trip?
A very loose itinerary of which towns they might be near at which times, which did end up changing. Well,
Per the 2021 order, Mr. Coleman is to let you know the physical address of the location for any overnight parenting time. Did he do that for that 5 weeks in Alaska?
no, and the 2021 order also states that he must have a home where Isaac has a bedroom, and I knew that was also not the case. But I knew that if I contested it, we would be back in court. But here we are.
Did Isaac express any concern about his 5 weeks in Alaska with Mr. Coleman?
He did. Yeah, I could tell that he was nervous about just being in a new place, not knowing anybody, his dad not really knowing anybody there. Yeah. He's also excited.
Okay. Did he say anything when he got back that anything concerned him that happened during that trip?
I will be conducting an in-camera interview, so.
Good. Okay. I appreciate hearing that. Okay, well then we can move on.
Thank you. Yep. No, well, for what his statements are, you don't have to move on topic wise.
Yeah, no, I appreciate hearing that. I hadn't heard the decision on that, so I appreciate knowing that's going to happen.
Well, to be fair, I don't know why one wasn't scheduled. It's mandatory from my interpretation of the law, so it should have been scheduled. It just wasn't. We'll take care of all that. So if that was something people were concerned with, it will be scheduled. We'll take care of that part procedurally off the record. But I noticed that it wasn't scheduled today, but I don't know why. If that was my mistake, then I accept it, but I'm not sure. I'm not really sure why it wasn't.
That's fair enough.
It's usually with minors between 6 and 17, we always schedule them. So if it's an oversight on my end, that was my fault, but it will be scheduled before I decide this case.
Did you feel you could reach out to Isaac while he was in Alaska? Did you feel there was open communication between you and Isaac and you and defendant, or you and plaintiff, excuse me, during that time?
At first there was, but it was similar to like when he was with him in Hawaii. Towards the last 2 weeks of the trip, there were periods of time where I was not able to contact him. And I also did not expect to talk to him multiple times per day or even every day. But I had requested maybe every other day. Okay.
So you weren't, can you clarify that you weren't calling multiple times a day expecting to talk to Isaac during this trip?
I was not, but during the period where I was not allowed to talk with him, I was texting and calling multiple times per day because I was very concerned.
You heard Mr. Coleman's testimony about catching a return flight to Traverse City from Alaska. Can you tell us your point of view on that?
Yes, I think most of what Mr. Coleman explained was accurate as far as the flight being switched, us getting home from Colorado. I mean, we read those text messages.
Mm-hmm.
I, was willing to purchase a hotel room as opposed to them sleeping on the street, but it's very concerning to me that that was the alternative. Certainly if Isaac were in my care, that's not something we would ever do. Nor do I think should happen. As far as the interaction at the hotel goes, Lonnie was handing me Isaac's belongings. I was putting them in the car, and then Lonnie handed me his backpack that he's had like since I've known him, so I knew it was his. And I said, I wish that you would ask me before expecting me to store your things. And apparently he had given many of his things to Isaac. I did not know that when I said that. And then he said, well, I gave it to Isaac. And then that is when he escalated in his response, and was cussing and left without really saying a proper goodbye
Without saying a proper goodbye to you or to Isaac?
to Isaac.
To Isaac, okay. What was Isaac's reaction?
He was sort of frozen, scared. It was a brief interaction, but obviously not how any of us wanted it to go.
As you heard in Mr. Coleman's testimony, he said that there was an agreed time that you were supposed to arrive at 9 a.m. to the hotel, that you kept him waiting till 10:15 a.m. Can you comment on that?
I don't recall being late. There's nothing in the text messages leading up to me picking up Isaac saying that I was late. There's a text message that says, okay, we're on our way. Mr. Coleman never responded saying, hey, we're waiting in the parking lot. We've been out here for an hour. So if I was late, I definitely don't recall that. And it really wasn't brought up until more recently as we're, entering this court process.
Also in testimony, Mr. Coleman acknowledged that you had packed $100 for Isaac for that trip to Alaska. Can you tell the court why you packed that?
Knowing that Mr. Coleman has a history of drug use, alcoholism, and apparently seizures, I was very concerned. Isaac being in Alaska, where I don't know anybody, a lot of places don't have cell service. I felt like it was a very big risk for me letting him go there. And I tried to think of what I could do to help him navigate a really tricky circumstance should it arise. So I packed him things like an emergency blanket and $100 tucked in his phone, things like that he could use if he were in a situation.
2018 order with the court stated that you and defendant needed to attend co-parenting classes or counseling. Did you do that?
We did, yes, with Catherine Martin.
And how many sessions did you go to?
It was 1.5. We went to one session, which was really just the intake. And during the second session, Mr. Coleman was, I believe in her words, hostile, openly hostile. And she made him leave the session, and she told me that she would not co-parent counsel with us anymore. She also told me that as much as she wanted to tell me everything would get better, it probably would not. And I would have to continue to just mitigate this very challenging situation because she did not see hope for us being able to work together.
Mr. Coleman admits and acknowledges to physical harm against you, that you have a history of domestic violence that he committed against you. Has he ever left you and Isaac in harm's way in other situations?
Yes, when we were together, he would often yell and scream, and to the point where we had to lock ourselves in a bedroom, or one time he locked us out of the house in the middle of winter. Isaac was in a diaper. I had no shoes on. It was the middle of a snowstorm. We tried to leave, got stuck in the driveway, just had to sit in the car in the driveway till somebody could help us. So we were very cold.
How old was Isaac at that time?
He would have been maybe 2 or 1.5. Probably
Okay.
1.5.
Are you afraid of Mr. Coleman?
Well, I will take this opportunity to say that actually I have indeed been in counseling since Mr. Coleman and I split up, which has been a lot of years now. I still see a counselor regularly, and through that therapy have grown and healed to a point where I am not terrified of him, but I do not trust him, and I do not wish to interact with him because I do fear for my safety emotionally and physically.
Do you fear for Isaac's safety emotionally and physically while he's with Mr. Coleman?
I do.
Has Mr. Coleman ever threatened to harm you or your family?
He has.
Can you explain that?
Back when we were together, he mentioned on several occasions hurting or killing my father. He's definitely threatened different things. When we were together, he often threatened to leave, which at the time I was scared of. I wanted to make it work for Isaac. He has made threats to me since we've been separated. He left me a voicemail saying that he would make me miserable until I was dead. Various other threats like that via text.
Has he ever threatened your sister?
I don't know if he's directly threatened her, but he has brought her into it. At one point, while she was in labor with her daughter, he forced me to call her and tell her she was a bitch, or he would leave me. I was less afraid of him leaving me and more afraid of him taking Isaac or really hurting Isaac through that process. So I called her. I did not tell her she was a bitch, but I did call her while she was in labor crying.
Mr. Coleman's testimony states that he believes that your intent is for Isaac to spend the summer with your father, Richard Bigham, instead of with Mr. Coleman. Is that accurate?
No, my father is planning to visit during the summers. He purchased property here and is building a cabin this summer. So we would be seeing him maybe twice per week, but he certainly would not be staying with my father. He would be with us when he is here.
Okay. You wouldn't be leaving Isaac unattended with your father?
No, I would not.
Mr. Coleman indicates that you did not have a psych evaluation done, and he did. Is that true?
No, I had a psych evaluation done with Marilyn Fitzgerald as well.
Okay.
And I would be willing to again.
Okay. Does Isaac have activities he looks forward to doing in Northern Michigan in the summer?
He does. He's on the baseball team in Kingsley. This will be his third year. He's quite excited about it. He's good at it. He likes it. He also has quite a few friends at school now that he's made, and so play dates are more easy to do in the summer. He went to a summer camp last year. He wanted to do an overnight camp this year, which may or may not be able to happen given the timing. He is starting a little donut business with a friend of his, which he was hoping to sell some donuts at the farmer's market I manage. We have a kids vendor, Allie, and so he was really hoping to be able to be here for some of those market dates. And we do a lot of, go to the pit spitters games and things like that too.
Mr. Coleman's testimony, he states that you take Isaac to festivals in the summer and leave him unattended where there are drugs and alcohol, and that's when you sell things and dance. Is that accurate?
That's an exaggeration. Last year I vended at 2 music festivals, both of which are very family friendly. I was there with family. We were in the vendor area the whole time. Isaac was with me. My friend's mother was also there caretaking. Her children were there, so they had each other, and she was caretaking the children while I was vending. And they were both local in Michigan. I bring Isaac because he really enjoys it. There's a lot of kids activities, and it's definitely not a party scene like some of the other music festivals are. These are folk festivals where there's a lot of workshops and actually recovery groups and, really positive, healthy and environment and influence. But I do like to dance.
Well, that's good. Does love and affection and other emotional ties exist between you and Isaac?
Yes.
Do you believe that love and affection and other emotional ties exist between plaintiff and Isaac?
Yes.
Do you have the capacity and disposition to give Isaac love, affection, and guidance, and the continuation of education and religious training in a faith or creed?
Yes.
Mr. Coleman stated that you are not religious. Is that true?
I do not follow a specific religion, but I am very spiritual. I've studied world religions. I pray on a regular basis. I believe in God.
Mr. Coleman spoke about this, the book of Urantia. Are you aware of this book?
I am. He showed it to me when I first met him when I was a teenager, and I read a fair bit of it.
Are you comfortable with Mr. Coleman teaching Isaac about this book of Urantia?
Not really. To me, it seems very cult-like. I have concerns.
Okay. You have the capacity and disposition to provide Isaac with food, clothing, medical care, other remedial care at this time?
I do.
Have you always provided for that for Isaac?
Yes.
Do you believe the plaintiff has the ability to provide for Isaac's needs for food, clothing, medical care, other remedial
I
care?
don't know. I have concerns. It concerns me that he was unable to secure a hotel room for them when his flight came in early. It concerns me that he didn't have money for food and had to use Isaac's money to buy food and whatever else. It also concerns me that there are times where, in Mr. Coleman's words, his body wasn't working. He was not able to walk or go to dinner with Isaac. These are things that very much concern me when Isaac's in his care in areas where I don't know anybody and they're quite rural. Yeah.
How long has Isaac lived with you now?
His whole life.
Are you morally fit, Miss LaRose?
I believe
Okay. Plaintiff is morally fit.
I don't know if he is morally fit, but I have concerns that he is mentally fit.
That's the next factor. So can you tell me the concerns you have about the plaintiff's mental fitness?
Mr. Coleman has shown over all of the years I've known him to be consistently erratic, angry, hostile, paranoid. I believe that there may be a diagnosis that has not been reached yet. This seems to be very cyclical. So as I've known him, there will be about 2 weeks where it's good and then 2 weeks where it's bad. And that was the case when Isaac was with him for the 5 weeks too. It definitely followed a cycle. As a person who kind of likes to geek out on therapy, I think there are some serious concerns here. As a mother, there are some serious concerns here.
Do you have concerns about the plaintiff's physical health?
Yes. During the period when Lonnie was living in Michigan, and Isaac was going with him for 2 nights a week. There were times where Mr. Coleman would call me and say, hey, you need to come get Isaac. I'm really sick, or my back went out. I can't take care of him. And that was just for 2-night runs. So I had a lot of hesitation going into this 5-week consecutive period because of that. And it sounds like it's still an issue for him to have chronic physical things that impede his ability to function normally.
Are you in good mental and physical health?
For the most part.
Okay.
I believe I am.
Okay. Do you have any chronic conditions? Have you been diagnosed with any mental health conditions or physical health conditions that at this time?
No.
What is Isaac's school record look like? How is Isaac doing at school? What school is he at?
He's at Glen in Traverse City. We make the commute from Kingsley because it's I really like the Montessori program. He's doing very well. He really likes his teacher, but unfortunately he's been out most of the year with an illness, but he's doing very well despite having subs. He's got a lot of friends. His teacher says he's very well liked in class. He's actually, the quotes his teacher said at the last parent-teacher conference was, he can always rely on Isaac to be a good influence on the other kids that maybe need that. So that was nice to hear.
Yeah, it's the best thing a parent can hear. Isaac expressed a preference to you about what his...
We'll have the in-camera.
Okay, are you willing and able to facilitate a close and continuing parent-child relationship with Isaac and the plaintiff?
If I feel it is healthy, yes.
Do you encourage Isaac to make phone calls to the plaintiff?
I do.
Do you have set times when Isaac calls the plaintiff?
I had been asking for a number of years if we could pick certain days and times because it was always a challenge. Mr. Coleman, as he mentioned, does not live in an area with good service and his phone is often off. So when Isaac would call, often he couldn't reach him, or he would call Isaac, but then we'd call back 5 minutes later and his phone would be off. So just as of the last couple of months, we did pick finally some days, Wednesday and Sunday. And we have not picked times, but we have consistently, I made sure that Isaac makes those phone calls on Wednesdays and Sundays.
You did get Isaac, helped get him packed up and ready to go on these trips with Mr. Coleman.
Yes.
And do you ever speak negatively about Mr. Coleman to Isaac?
I am very careful not to. It's challenging because Mr. Coleman talks negatively to him about me on the phone almost every conversation. And Isaac has told me this. It makes him very uncomfortable. And sometimes I would like to share more of my side of the story, but through taking counseling sessions with Trisha Shore on how I can help Isaac, that was one of the things really early on she said is not to do that. So I do not.
Do you believe the plaintiff has a willingness and an ability to facilitate and encourage a close and continuing relationship between you and Isaac?
No.
Okay. You already touched on that, but is there anything else other than what you just said that you'd like to add to that about why you don't think he has an ability or willingness to encourage a close and continuing relationship with you and Isaac?
There are a lot of text messages that speak to that. All I can say is Isaac is generally kind of upset after their calls. He does not want to talk about them. I do not pry, but I know that Mr. Coleman often says really negative things about me. I also know that Mr. Coleman has read the entire motions, both motions that I have submitted. The first one I submitted by myself. The second one was recently submitted by you. And Mr. Coleman has read the entirety of those to Isaac, which I feel is very inappropriate.
Have you read court pleadings to Isaac?
Absolutely
I
not.
already touched that there was domestic violence in this relationship. Has there ever been domestic violence in your home other than what happened with Mr. Coleman?
No.
Has there ever was Isaac present when that domestic violence incident occurred?
He was in the home. I remember him being in the room adjacent. Mr. Coleman remembers him being upstairs. It was a very traumatic moment, so I can't say for sure where he was, but he was in the home and he was aware of it.
Aware of it. Isaac was aware of it.
Yes.
How did you know he was aware of it?
He was very scared. He was crying. I don't recall if we talked much about it. He was very young, but I left with him and we stayed at a friend of mine's house, and I told Mr. Coleman that we would not be coming back home unless he was not there. And that was directly following the physical abuse.
Mr. Coleman in his testimony states that there was abuse directed towards Isaac from a past relationship that you were in. Is that true? And can you comment on that?
I don't know if it's true. That was brought to my attention by Lonnie. I asked Isaac about it. He sort of laughed it off. I asked my previous partner about it. He said, oh, well, I was taking him to time out and his hair got caught in my hand. I don't know. I wasn't there. I talked with them both about it and did not feel that it was a really big issue or incident, but certainly stated that any sort of physical punishment was not to be in our home.
I have no further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you. Mr. Coleman, this is your opportunity to ask the witness, Ms. LaRose, some questions. Just as a reminder, it's just questions, so not really statements from you, and you ask and she answers, and that's how it goes, okay?
Okay.
Okay.
So Ms. LaRose, when you mentioned that I locked you out of the home, do you remember starting a fire on the stove in the kitchen and filling the house with smoke?
No, I do not.
Had that ever happened before anywhere we had lived?
I remember that the place we were living when that happened, the wood stove would back up frequently, and we were struggling to not let the smoke escape from the wood stove.
In our interaction coming back from Alaska, you said that I became agitated and started cussing and calling you names. What were those cuss words and names?
I remember you saying something about your shit, like don't throw away my shit or something like that. I remembered that you had maybe called me a name after talking with my husband, Kevin. He does not remember you calling my name. I might be wrong. You have called me a lot of names. Perhaps you didn't in that circumstance. I still find the interaction concerning, but I'm sorry if I was wrong about that part.
Do you consider saying, don't throw away my shit, or as I recall, I said, stop giving me shit. Do you consider that cussing at you?
Yes, but it was more so you're raising your tone of voice. Your face got very red. You threw your stuff down and walked away without saying a proper goodbye to Isaac.
Actually, I did hug Isaac before I left, as I recall, and he recalls. During our time in Alaska, did I send you photos of what we were doing?
You did send me photos, yes.
And how often was that?
Maybe every couple days.
Did Isaac send you photos of what we were doing?
He did send me a couple photos, yes.
How often did you call Isaac?
I usually waited for Isaac to call me, but if I didn't hear from him and it had been 2 days, then I called.
So you would pretty much every other day you were talking to Isaac, or we were, either me or him were sending you texts of what we were doing.
Initially, yes, not at the end of the visit.
And then how long of a period of time toward the end did you not receive a text or phone call from Isaac?
I do not remember that exact number of days, and I don't want to misspeak, but I know that it was more than 3. It is available via, I think, the text messages which have been submitted, but certainly my phone record.
I wasn't able to enter my my evidence, but had Isaac's phone and did look at it, and there were 2 days that he did not call you. I'm sorry that made you feel.
Again, just so I can emphasize, it's just for questions.
Okay. So also in our trip to Alaska, before we left, I did explain to you our plans for Alaska, where we were going. Yes.
Objection, there's no question being asked.
Did I explain to you our plans for Alaska before I came to Michigan?
Yes, as I stated before, you gave me a brief summary of where you would be when. That did change, but you told me your general plans as far as being in Anchorage, Girdwood, and Juneau.
And we did visit those places, yes.
It sounds like it.
Yes. So before we left for each destination, we contacted you and told you when we were going to arrive and had arrived, correct?
You communicated with me some during your trip about where you were and when. Yes, I don't know if it was every time, but yes.
At any point in our trip, did you send me text messages or leave any kind of voice message saying that you were concerned for
I
Isaac?
believe I did towards the end when I was not able to talk with him.
And what were those text messages stating?
Well, of course, I don't remember them off the top of my head, but Ms. Belden, do you happen to know where they might be in this packet?
I will look for that and touch on that in a moment then.
During our interaction, when we met in the park, you brought Isaac's stuff for Alaska. Was it still in the packaging?
Yes, some of it was still in the packaging.
Would you consider packing bringing his camping gear still in the boxes.
You said to bring the stuff and that you wanted me to bring him a day early so that you guys would have time to go through it all and pack it.
Did you provide Isaac with a backpack to put his gear in before I arrived, or?
You had sent a backpack. And I also did not bring the sleeping bag because you said, do not bring it. I have one for him.
I don't recall that myself. So you say that I was drinking a beer in the park when you arrived, yes?
Yes, you also said that.
One I'd possibly have drank one before that.
Well, there are 6 in the pack and the third one was open and in your hands. There were 2 missing.
So did I offer you and your husband a beer?
You did.
When you left, did I ask you and your husband to take the remaining beers with you?
Yes, and we did not.
Assuming that I bought the beers for you and your husband also.
It's not really a question, but I don't drink beer at 1 p.m. in the afternoon in a kid's playground park. So I don't know why you would offer me a beer there. And then especially when Isaac was going with you, and you know how I feel about you drinking around him.
When we met before we left for Hawaii, where did I meet you and your husband to get Isaac?
Before you left for Hawaii or Alaska?
Hawaii.
I don't recall.
Might it have been the Right Brain Brewery?
Oh, that was, I don't know if that was before you left with Isaac for Alaska or after, but yes, we did meet you at the Right Brain Brewery. That was the second time you had met Kevin, but the first time was very, very brief. I do recall you asking if we would like to sit and have a beer with you. I accepted. I regret that choice because my hopes that it would somehow lead to us all being able to get along and co-parent well together were obviously unfounded.
How did that interaction go, though? Did we have a good interaction, the three of
It
us?
went pretty well. And then it was only a matter of hours after we left that you started texting me harassing texts again.
I don't recall that, but I do recall giving your husband a hug and giving you a hug when you left, and there was no issue. Let's see what else. So also in our interaction in the park, did I mention to you that I did have friends in Alaska?
I don't recall you saying that. You may have, but I don't remember it.
You bought you say that you paid for the hotel room, yes?
Yes.
After I asked you.
Well,
And then I spent the $100 that you had given Isaac. How long after that happened did I send you, PayPal you $300?
I don't recall how long after that it was, but you did. I did not ask you to, but I appreciate it.
When I was with you, did I ever do drugs in front of you?
I don't recall you doing drugs in front of me. You knew that that's something that I would not approve of, but I do remember during a brief period, we were split up while I was pregnant, you telling me that you were doing meth.
When was that I was doing meth?
Well, I was pregnant in 2011, end of 2010 to the beginning of 2011. So that's when it would have been.
I all that. And you say that I had a history of drug use, and before we met, and what drugs were those?
Well, you told me that you used to be addicted to heroin.
Okay. When I was with you, how often did I drink?
Well, every time I saw you drinking, I said that we could not be together. So you only drank when we were apart or when you were very, very angry.
And how often was that?
I wouldn't know because I'm sure I don't know all the times that you drank. I probably saw you do it. It varies. I mean, there were times where it was, every week, every day. There were times where it was maybe once a month.
How often did you drink?
When we were together, not really at all.
Is how often you grew up? How often growing up did your family drink around you?
As you stated before, my dad does have a history with alcoholism. He has been to rehab recently. I'll just volunteer that information. He was at the Bear River Rehab. And he is going to AA meetings consistently now and doing well, and that's good. But I have drawn a boundary with him that if he is drinking, he's not to be around Isaac, and I would prefer not to be around him as well. It's the same boundary I drew with you.
Has Richard Bigham fell out of Isaac's treehouse intoxicated?
He did fall out of the treehouse. I do not know that he was
Do you
intoxicated.
feel that Isaac is safe being left alone for any lengths of time with Richard?
If he is sober, yes, but because I cannot fully rely on that, being that he's recently gotten sober again, it's not the first time, but I just would prefer not to leave him alone with my dad at this time because I don't think he should be in the care of anybody who has that big a problem with alcohol.
At any point in our time in Alaska, did Isaac contact you or talk to you and say that he was scared or felt unsafe?
He said that to me after he got home.
And what scared him about being in Alaska?
He said he was very scared when you were intoxicated and unable to take care of
I
him.
believe that's it, Your Honor. Thank you. Thank you, Sierra, for being honest. I very much appreciate it.
Ms. Belden, any redirect?
Yeah, one question, Sierra. Likewise, do you send pictures of, I'm sorry, do you send pictures of Isaac to the plaintiff?
I do. Yes. I honestly, I would like to send more, but quite often any text I send, whether it's a happy one of Isaac doing something cool or a question or whatever it is often met with strings of harassing texts. So if I could be assured that that wouldn't happen, say via our family wizard, I would love to send more pictures.
No, I have no further questions, Your Honor.
Any final question, Mr. Coleman, based on that last question Ms. Belden asked?
No, I believe that's it, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you.